This time for Africa.
Hey, what's up guys? Today we're going to talk about what to do when the market doesn't pull back to your POI or supply and demand zones. Now currently we're on EU as usual. Then if you've noticed on the current time of recording, EU has made a drop similar to this one. As you can see, this was the drop, showing a huge drop, an impulsive drop, and not doing pullbacks, healthy pullbacks as I would call, to certain supply zones before continuing to the downside. Now, again, doesn't mean we are scalpers or intraday or day traders that we need to actually trade every single day. If price doesn't meet your criteria, your entry criteria, on how you execute trades, and don't be ashamed of not taking trades, because again, remember, this is not a short-term journey. This is a long-term for the foreseeable future of your career or of your life. This is a short video on giving you ideas for, especially for beginners or new to this type of concept, giving you ideas on what to do when the market doesn't pull back to your designated or highlighted POI, or in other words, supply and demand zones. Now, as you can see, let's just go back on the 4R. So currently EU is at this zone. And the last time I recorded, because I took a very long break, I believe price was somewhere here. So I believe the last time I've recorded is I took a buy here, somewhere within on these tiny zones, to take to this certain supply zone for price to continue to the downside, because what I believed in, since I saw this structural break over here, so obviously we are now expecting a shift to the downside. As you can see, lower high, lower low. Now we're expecting another lower high and a continuation to the lower low. Now at the same time, doesn't mean, remember that the larger time frame is always key, because the lower time frames are just following the larger time frames. As you can see, on lower time frames, why is it forming an uptrend? Because on the higher time frame, even though we're in a downtrend, price needs to do a pullback at some point. As you can see, price broke this previous lower low, broke it, then made a pullback to the upside to grab this supply zone to continue to the downside. And again, I also made, I think the last video I made was how to manage your trades, which before price hit this certain supply zone over here, I exited the trade because we see a break of structure over there. That is according to my rules. That is according on how I manage my rules, or how I manage my trades during when it's open. It's all different. It depends on how you optimize, or it depends on what type of trader you are. So as you can see, we're expecting a downtrend. So I took some buys over here. Let me just show it. The 15-minute. As you can see, I believe it was a buy here. As you can see, there is a more refined zone here, demand zone. I saw a good confirmation, a break of structure in lower time frames. Took a buy there. As you can see, partial on the way. And as soon as I saw this break of structure over here, then obviously I was expecting price to now continue to the downside, because again, doesn't mean you have a certain supply zone over here. It doesn't mean you have a supply zone. Price needs to tap into it. Price is not it's not mandatory for price to tap into that supply zone to continue to the downside. Again, there are more supply zones on way more lower time frames, or more refined supply zones for price to tap into it and go to the downside. Now again, doesn't mean price didn't tap to your supply zone that this certain strategy or concept is not working. This is why most traders fail or don't succeed or last in the long term, because again, they keep switching up their strategies. They see this, oh no, price broke structure, didn't tap to my supply zone over here. What do I do? Should I just enter in this on this break of structure over here, since this is a valid distribution over here, then continue to the downside, or should I wait on my certain POI? And again, this is still a valid trade, but that is according to your entry criteria. If your entry criteria is if price doesn't tap a certain POI but shows a break of structure on higher time frames or on a certain time frame, then I could trade it. Then again, if you back tested that or forward tested it, it is a valid reasoning for you to enter this trade. But as you can see, I was expecting my final take profit over here. I believe it's a 1, I'm not sure, 1 to 40. I don't know, that was like 2 weeks ago. But as you can see, as soon as it broke structure, then I partialed on these zones over here. I certain supply zone because I was expecting pullback, then continue to the downside. But again, let's focus on our topic, what to do when the market is trending to the downside and not pulling back to your certain POI. Now, as you can see, as soon as price, so overall, we were expecting, right? We were expecting for price to continue to the downside. As you can see, lower low, lower high, lower low. This was the one earlier, the trade I took, or the last video I made on. It's here. And as you can see, price just went down. Now, if we go back on this price point, as you can see, is we can mark up this certain POI. At this moment, I was marking up this. So this is my thought process. I'll cut. At this current point, what I do typically is look for a POI, since again, overall, we are in a overall downtrend. So obviously, I want to be with the trend, because again, you can technically counter trend on way more lower time frames, but there's also other opportunities on higher time frames, or vice versa. So we have a supply zone over here. As you can see, if I get my fib tool, because I do believe this is lower low, lower low, lower high, lower low, a lower high, since it broke the previous lower low. Now we technically don't know where is the lower low. The lower low could be here, the lower low could be here, or even way more lower, or this could be the lower low. But what we can do is anticipate or try to expect on what price might do in the foreseeable future. This is why we are called speculators, but not predictors. So I get my Fibonacci tool because I want price to do a pullback within the 50% to continue to the downside, because again, price needs to do a pullback. This is how I consider a healthy pullback for price to then continue to the downside. And as you can see, we have this supply zone near that 50%, so price can do this, tap into that supply zone, give us some confirmation, then enter in that confirmation, target these lows to continue to the downside. So that is what I was expecting this current point. As you can see, if you play price down, it's going way more lower. So I could adjust again, since I still don't see a valid lower low, since price hasn't made a healthy pullback yet. Now, as you can see, if we measure this, price hasn't made a pullback to the 50%. So I wouldn't consider this as a healthy pullback. But what we can do is still trail up to this point. Now, I then ask myself, considering, so this is how I measure some certain pullbacks. What I mean is, if we measure from this lower high to this lower low, this is 108 pips. From this high to this low, this is 170. So let's just say the average drop is roughly 150 pips. So as you can see, if we measure this from this high to this low, this is already 250 pips. So I then ask myself, this drop over here is nothing similar to some drops over here. So for example, this drop over here, as you can see, this drop is impulsive and massive on higher time frames. Now I ask myself, what is the higher time frame doing? What is price doing? This is where we add confluence. I'm going to do a video about confluence in the foreseeable future. But as you can see, price drop. Why is price dropping? It's probably, as you can see, what I still believe is technically still bullish on a higher time frame, but on lower time frames we can look for sells. As you can see, we see a lower low, but this higher high broke these highs over here, so higher high. So technically we're still in a range from this high to this low. As long as price doesn't break this low over here, then still we are in a uptrend. Price can still continue to go to the upside. Price can technically go here, tap into this some certain demand zones over here, then continue to the upside, or tap into some demand zones here or here, continue to the upside. Again, we are speculators. We can never predict the market, and no one can predict the market. Doesn't mean you are using SMC or quote unquote that you can predict the market on on where it could go. Hence, this is why we risk manage, we risk small, because again, we are just speculating. We are just hoping or having a strategy that has a probability for us to trade in the right direction or on our bias, to trade according to our bias. For example, if your bias is sell, then obviously you would take sells. But currently, what I see EU doing is either doing a pullback on this demand zone here to continue to the upside. We can also wait for confirmation, a larger time frame confirmation, to give us more confidence that price actually wants to then continue to the upside, grabbing this liquidity high, or it could go way more lower to this demand zone than continue to the upside. So again, doesn't mean there are demand zones here and here. That price needs to actually bounce from that demand zone. Again, price can go way more lower, and I will be fine with it. So what do you do according? So as you can see, we check the higher time frame on what price might do. And I believe, let's just do a quick one, a rough one. I believe there was a 1 hour zone over here, I believe. Then another one. Then my final markups are, let me just check. So as you can see, I marked one over here, somewhere here. When price did technically react, we also had some scalp buys over there. And we have this one and this one. This one, price did react on this. I believe it's the 15-minute or the 30-minute demand zone. As you can see, price reacted to that. Now currently price is on this specific zone over here. Now again, we can expect for price to now shift to the upside, but since we are in a overall downtrend, I obviously want to break. I want to see a structural break. As you can see, I want this certain point over here to be break, because this is currently the protected high and this is the target low. Since again, lower low, lower high, lower low. Now we're expecting another lower high to continue to the downside. But if price breaks this this lower high over here, then it is a possible shift to the upside. Now, as you can see, so as soon as price went to this zone, I then looked over to the left and I evaluated on what price might do. And obviously we had some scalp buys over there because I was expecting price to then do a pullback, since overall from this current point over here, since overall we are in a heavy downtrend, price needs to rest or do some pullback, create liquidity before continuing to the downside. But again, I was wrong, but we had some bias over there since I did see confirmation according to my rules. Hence, it is very important to follow your rules. As you can see, price did continue to the downside. Now, I then shifted from this as my lower high, then this as my lower low. Now I want price to do a pullback, then continue to the downside. Again, we can also grab the fib tool. As you can see, let me just clear up this brush over here. As you can see, we have the fib tool over here. Then I believe I marked one roughly. Let's just do a rough one over there. Mark a POI, certain supply zone, wait for confirmation, then take sells at the same time, managing your trades according to your rules, or you can hold it depending on your strategy. As you can see, it broke lower. Then we can then shift to have another perspective of price. As you can see, this is my protected high and another target low. So I'm expecting now price. This is the current price point. Now we can look for scalp buys to bring it to the upside. Then trade sells over here to then continue to the downside, since overall we are still in a downtrend. At the same time, we're adding confluence that this certain POI or supply zone is near my 50%, which is quote unquote a healthy pullback for me. Now, the main point of this, doesn't mean we're scalpers again or day traders that you need to take trades every single day or have 2 trades every day. If price doesn't give you or doesn't allow you to trade, then just take a day off or just wait for another setup in the foreseeable future. Because again, not taking a trade is also a trading decision, because if it doesn't meet your entry criteria, then obviously you shouldn't enter. As you can see, some people could FOMO in, oh, this is gonna continue to the downside. Then they would be correct. This is the type of people who don't have a trading strategy, okay? Then they would profit from this, because again, this is the scary thing about the market. You can technically make tons of money without a strategy. That is the crazy thing about the market, because the market can fool you. It can give you 4 months of profitability, but in the next year or next 2 years, then you would blow your account, blow multiple accounts, because again, the market can fool you. The market can give you profits, and even though you don't have a trading strategy, the market can still give you profits. That's the scary thing about the market. So currently doesn't mean this is, I believe, 8 days. I mean a week, 5 days from this point to this point. Price not doing a pullback doesn't mean it won't do a pullback. You will then FOMO and looking for sells over here. Remember, always stick to your rules, entry criteria. At the same time, my other advice is you can also look for scalps. Remember, you have to have a proper entry, certain set of rules that you need to follow strictly. So structure, technically structure is on at this current point over here. Just go on a clean chart. So at this current point over here, as you can see, technically we are in a downtrend. So rule 1, look for structure. Technically we are in a downtrend. Rule 2, look for POI. We have the certain POI here. Doesn't mean we are in a downtrend. We can't look for buys, because again, price needs to do a pullback at some point. We can look for it on lower time frames to look for buys to this certain part. Let's just say there's a supply zone over there, then look for sales again to continue to the downside. So that is also another idea to do when price won't do a pullback, or if price does this type of a movement where price is just impulsively to the downside. And another advice is just wait patiently, because again, I believe, yeah, it's like 1 week just going down, but if you have waited, there could be good opportunities, good buys and sells over here. So if you wouldn't have FOMO'd in or traded not according to your strategy, you would have multiple losses. Then you would start emotionally trade on this parts over here, because you want to make up from your losses somewhere here. So I hope you guys learned something new. And again, remember, it doesn't mean,
oh, we're trading smart money concepts or institutional trading, then we would predict the market easily.
Again, doesn't mean we are using quote-unquote SMC or institutional trading, that other strategies won't work. Again, it really depends on what type of person you are, or if the strategy or a certain strategy fits your personality. And again, I love this strategy. There's nothing wrong trading support and resistance. I know many people who trade support and resistance, and they make a lot of money. They make consistent gains year after year. Then, as you can see, in the end of the day, this is just a concept. So thanks for watching. I hope you guys learned something. So see you soon.